I love it. That's it's interesting. And you and I met, you and I have known each other for a long time and we always got along. And I'm always thinking, like, if you were here, I was there, we'd probably work together because there's so many
Love
things
it.
like that are so many similarities. And it stems from our passion and trying to understand these kids and really help them, like the satisfaction you get. But every session starts with, hey, what's working well? What's a
Mhm,
challenge? And
mhm,
why is that a challenge? And backing up into what may have caused more of a challenge and how can you tweak that so that
mhm,
next time it's successful and you find out, oh, we didn't pre-plan or we went during a really crowded time to Target, which is a store. I don't know
mhm,
if you get
mhm. Yeah.
it. And it's like we didn't have a friend, they paired with the wrong child. Like, you start to realize what worked and what didn't. And I think the hardest thing is parents, that consistency of knowing what, when, and how to do things and
Mhm.
really helping them unlearn their conditioned behaviors.
Yes.
Because just of like I when you went like this with the triangle, I think of the SM triangle. I think of it as the person at the top the child doesn't talk to. The one side is the parent or someone the child does talk, and then the child. And so many times the parent
Mm.
tell them what you want to eat. Tell them what we're looking for in a store. Say hi to your friend or say hi to the neighbor, but the child isn't even engaging yet and can't do it. They don't know what, how, and when to do that.
Mhm, mhm.
And then you've got the parent that speaks for them, speaks for them, speaks for them, and enables lack of social communication.
Yeah.
So the key is to integrate that by how the parent questions the child. So I always say a choice is always easy with the right answer second as a starting point, and having visuals. Visuals can be for everything. So that minimizes the need to think and process. So you've got all that going. So every time you go like that, I'm thinking of my SM triangle.
I like it. I
Yeah,
like it. That's super
we're all
cool.
about the emotions today, but
Mm.
I was gonna say that what's working well and what's not is so, so critical. And I don't know how you are, but for me, when I see a child, so I have a monthly program. We have weekly psychotherapy in our office, but I do what we call the monthly SCAP program. And one of the things we do is parents will fill out a parent follow-up form, the school will fill out their form. So before they see me, Ruth, I need to know what's working well and
Mhm,
what's not so I can focus on that. Because then I
mhm.
start the session with, let's go over the things that are happening. And
I
I don't
love it. I love
know
it.
because for me, I want that time to be so like focused on tweaking the process. But it's yes, I teach this all the time to my students is you need to know what's working and what's not. And when
Mhm.
something's not, there's a reason. Always, always a reason.
Yes, yes.
Sometimes it's just misunderstanding, the parents misunderstanding what to do. And you have to educate them again and teach them that skill.
Mhm. Yes, and I love the accountability because of writing it down. Also for a
Yes.
teacher, if a teacher writes, and it has to be minimal, they're not going to fill out a long form.
Mm.
But what have they done? And details are so important. For
So
example, you send a video of a young child, and the teacher is supposed to listen to it one on one with the child, and that will be kind of the top of their comfort zone, but not bombastic, something that has never happened, that will be so hard for them to manage. And then the teacher takes the video and puts it on a huge screen, and the whole class listens to the recording, and the child was not ready for that. And that wasn't
yep.
what the teacher was what was explained to the teacher. And that can be a traumatic experience for a child when it's just too much. So I think that's also part of the training, that the details, the gradual steps, but listening, also listening to
Look,
your
listen,
recommending.
and learn. Look, listen, and learn. That's another one. LLL. Look, listen, and learn. Because the kids tell us everything.
Yes, yes,
They tell us everything without them telling us anything. Just
yes.
how they respond, their body language when they're, you know what I mean? So, yes, you're right. I love it. I love it. That's such a similarity. So you mentioned the word trauma, and sometimes people are like, does SM start from trauma? The typical trauma of abuse, we don't see that, but unless it's an abrupt change, right? Or traumatic mutism,
It's rare. That's very rare.
very, very rare. But trauma can be what you described.
For
Trauma can, right?
Absolutely. For a sensitive child, I hear so often that a child will say, I didn't know that the teacher was there and I was talking to my mum. And then she came up and said, Oh, wonderful to hear you speak. And I didn't
Yeah.
want, I wasn't ready for that. Or the example that I gave of having a video suddenly on a large projector when I wasn't ready. And of course,
Yeah.
trauma is also being shouted at, being even vicarious trauma, that when there is an atmosphere of
I
not
mean,
being sensitive to the children.
absolutely. And I'm going to say something and, might come with resistance to this, but to me, trauma is trying to get a kid to talk when they're not ready. When
True.
they're I mean, that's
Mm.
trauma, and we see it every day in the office where they were asked and told, "You need to talk." I had a teacher withhold a cookie during snack time because the child didn't talk, because the goal from that particular therapist, not sure why, is she needs to say what cookie she wants. If
I
not, she doesn't get that's trauma, Ruth.
trauma. I have a worse example, which is flooding, which is when I was in university in England in, I don't know when, in the 70s. This was something that was considered that you could do, but it absolutely isn't. I had a case of a kindergarten teacher who said, "You're not going home until you've said thank you for the chocolate." And the child did say in the end, "Thank you for the chocolate." He was desperate to go home, and then he had school phobia.
Yep,
And he refused
exactly.
to go back the next day.
So, a message to parents from what you just said, is yes, you can force a kid to talk sometimes. Here's the question to a parent listening, because that's the majority of our listeners.
Mhm.
We do have treatment providers too, I have to say, and we have older individuals, but by far the majority are parents. How is your child reacting after these goals that you're doing or trying to do? Are
Oh,
they upbeat? Are they positive? Are they more
true.
confident? Are they excited? Are they looking like, or are they avoidant, more anxious, resistant, behavioral difficulties? That is such a $1,000,000 question, because what you were saying with you need to say this, we hear this still to this day, which baffles my mind. The child's need to talk, got to talk, you have to talk. You're going to have friends if you talk. If you don't tell your teacher, they're not going to know what you know. We talk about talking, but we meet them where they're at. It's not like we don't talk about talking, but we know it's hard. And here's where we're going to
Mhm.
start. And they rate their feelings, they get it. But how, as a parent, all the listeners, how is your child reacting after you're implementing strategies?
Right. Does she feel good about herself? Does she feel
Right,
that was a bit hard, but yeah, I did it. I feel
right,
good about myself. Or does she lie down on the floor and cry? That is
right.
never good. That is
Or not willing to go back to that therapist, or not wanting to go to school, or not wanting to go to a restaurant or a store now. If your child is doing that, you need to stop and
I,
figure it out.
I say that so often. I had a parent come in last week whose child has been in therapy for a year, cries before every therapy session. That is cannot be. And
No,
doesn't
that
talk
is
to the therapist. It has to be that the child is feeling empowered. Perhaps it's
empowering.
quite a difficult. It might have some difficulty. There might be habituation that you get used to this fact that the teachers heard me, and that was quite hard. I didn't feel all that comfortable, but I did it and I feel good about it. If that's not the case, then you have to go back to the drawing board and
And
tweak.
tweak and tweak. And I often say comfort precedes communication, comfort and connection. Let's add that.
Mhm,
Comfort and
mhm.
think of it as a cake that you're baking, and the icing is the comfort, connecting kids, putting it all together. If you don't have comfort in a setting, a connection to someone, if you don't have that baseline, you're in trouble, because kids are not going to make these huge leaps without that sense of connection and comfort level.
Right. And that's one of the first things that I tell a teacher, that you can establish a relationship with this child, even if he doesn't talk to you.
Right.
You can show your interest in what they're doing without putting them in the limelight, which might be too much for them. But yeah, that's a very colorful picture. You cleared up all those toys. That's helpful. You can see them, they're not invisible. That's the
Right.
first, they're not transparent. That's the first stage of having connection. And sometimes teachers are scared of doing this because they feel that the vibes that I'm getting from the child is stay away. I don't feel comfortable with you. And that is the teacher's job, is to find a way of approaching the child and having him feel comfortable. And nearly always it is possible to do when there is goodwill and understanding of the teacher. And the same goes for grandma, the same goes for
Yep.
any uncles, people with whom the child doesn't feel comfortable. The first stage is feeling comfortable. One of the important things in feeling comfortable is not to have a barrage of questions. Tell me what what your best friend's called. How old are you now? Not to have that barrage of questions, but to engage with a child on a level at which he feels comfortable. That's the starting
Meeting that
point.
child where they are. So I think in summary, this has been a great episode. We talked about why the clinic isn't enough and having accountable goals, having ways for that we train and bridging to these other environments in a very stepwise manner, many times using specific skills and strategies that are particular to that individual's needs, whatever they
Mhm.
may be, and accounting for their whys, accounting for their baseline stage, educating the team, your triangle, my hand in hand, teachers, parents, key workers, the speech and language pathologist, grandma, grandpa, Aunt Bertha. They all need to understand
They
so that
do.
everyone is meeting that child where they're at. And we talked about the sliding in method, which is beautiful and it's needed. And that goes along with your bridge because you're sliding in using your bridge
Right, right.
and bridging it together. And then we talked about everything, the critical need of training. We always say an initial training, we usually say an hour training, and then every 6 to 8 weeks for 30 minutes to tweak, 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 because you
I
can't give the school a barrel of things. They need to have 5 or 6 bullet points to really work on.
Mhm. And the integrative bit of
Yes.
it, of having a combination of and actually getting together. And it's so much easier on Zoom now that you can get
Yep.
together with a teacher. It doesn't need to be long, but what have you been doing? What has worked?
Yep.
Let's tweak that. Let's make sure that what you're going to do for the next few weeks is something that is going to be appropriate and is going to empower the child and is not going to engender a sense of failure, which children with selective mutism feel so frequently. They're requested to do something and they're
Yep.
not doing. The same with parents. What are they doing? What are they doing at home? What are they doing outside the home? And is it working? And is it empowering?
Yeah, no, you brought up that sense of failure. That's what children describe, and they'll draw that or the sense of shame. And so the key is what is, that's important. If your child is feeling that way, that's not the confidence that's going to fuel progression of communication.
Right.
Comfort, connection, confidence building, independence fuels communication and to become a confident social verbal communicator.
Yes, it's exactly that. Yeah. I we agree. We just agree on everything.
We agree. And we always did like have that similarity of meeting them where they're at. And it's,
Mhm,
whether you're calling it one thing or I'm calling it something else, it's really important to really meet that child where they're at and understand their unique needs and have everybody integrated and educating the school. You have to educate everyone. We have that document about my child. Look, we can't meet with everyone. Sometimes you meet with extended family, and we
mhm,
always want to meet with the school, but that about my child worksheet where you describe your child, give it to people. Some children write their own. Here's
mhm.
ways you could help me. It's amazing how when children get involved, how empowered they feel by being in control.
Yeah. What do I dislike about family gatherings? What
Yes.
helps me feel comfortable in family gatherings? And then the extended family can learn from that. Yeah, that is a great sense of control and empowerment.
It's been wonderful.
It has been so good to talk to you. And, I do want to say one thing that I do feel that the movement over the last 20 years has been to ensuring that the child's real life is impacted and of getting that help in the school, in the kindergarten, at home, with friends, and just taking all of the environments of the child's real life and making sure that strategies and tools are implemented gradually. So it is, yeah, meeting them when they're at and then building on that and
Building. Tweaking.
finding, tweaking, yes, and just ensuring that progress is happening.